Morning sun hadn't yet warmed the streets of Maplewood when the phone call came, the one that would shatter James Carter's fragile peace. "Mr. Carter, this is your final notice," the voice on the line said, cold and impersonal. "Your vehicle will be repossessed today." His hands trembled as he hung up, the words echoing like a death sentence. Without that car, he'd miss his VA appointment. Without the appointment, the painkillers he desperately needed would run out. And without them, the nightmares, the ones that dragged him back to Fallujah, would swallow him whole. Outside, Maplewood looked like any other sleepy town, neat brick storefronts, rustling oak trees, neighbors waving over picket fences. But beneath the surface, desperation clung to the Carters like a shadow. Linda, his wife, had taken on extra shifts at the hospital, her hands raw from scrubbing in and out of sterile rooms. James, a decorated Marine, now fought a different war. Bills piling up, job applications ignored, and the gnawing shame of being unable to protect his family. The bank had been polite at first. "We understand, Mr. Carter," they'd said, nodding sympathetically across the polished desk. But understanding didn't stop the interest from compounding. It didn't stop Mr. Reynolds, the bank manager, from pursing his lips and sliding the final notice across the table. Rules are rules. James had begged that day, his pride crumbling like dust in his fists. He'd even mentioned the shrapnel still lodged near his spine, the reason he couldn't stand for long, the reason he needed that car. But the tow truck arrived anyway, its metallic jaws clamping around the only thing keeping him tethered to hope. As it rumbled away, Linda reached for his hand, but James was already gone, lost in the memory of another battle, when he never thought he'd fight at home. Little did he know, in exactly 24 hours, the Marines would come back for him. And this time, they wouldn't be asking permission. Sound of the tow truck's engine faded down the street, but the humiliation lingered like a stain. James Carter stood frozen on the cracked driveway, his keys still clenched in his fist as if he could will the car back. Linda squeezed his shoulder, her fingers trembling, not from the morning chill, but from the quiet terror of what came next. No car meant no job interview across town. No interview meant another month of choosing between groceries and the mortgage. Behind them, curtains twitched in neighbors' windows. Maplewood was the kind of place where news traveled faster than the rusted school bus. James turned away, his boots scuffing the pavement. He didn't trust himself to speak. The VA appointment tomorrow, the one that might finally get him stronger pain meds, was now a 12-mile walk he couldn't physically make. The shrapnel in his back flared at the thought, a cruel reminder of the IED that had spared his life but stolen his peace. Linda's phone buzzed, another shift offer at the hospital. She hesitated, then declined. Someone had to stay to pick up the pieces when the walls closed in. Inside, the house felt smaller. James stared at the fridge, its door plastered with overdue bills and a faded photo of his unit. Dark-eyed young men, arms slung over each other's shoulders, sand and sweat staining their uniforms. Captain Diaz had promised they'd always have each other's backs. But that was before the paperwork, the bureaucracy, the way the world moved on while soldiers got left behind. He grabbed his phone, thumb hovering over Diaz's contact. Pride choked him. Last time they'd spoken, James had brushed off his offer for help. "We're managing," he'd lied. Knock at the door. Mr. Reynolds, the bank manager, stood on the porch, crisp suit at odds with the peeling paint. He held a clipboard like a shield. "Just need your signature confirming receipt of the repossession notice." His voice was polite, sterile. James's vision tunneled. This man had sat across from him days ago, nodding along to stories of Fallujah, even thanking him for his service, before taking the one thing that kept him functional. Linda stepped between them, her voice steady but her hands shaking. "You got what you wanted. Leave." Reynolds' smile didn't reach his eyes. "It's not personal, Mrs. Carter. The bank has procedures." The word slithered under James's skin. Procedures, like the procedures that gave him a medal but no pension, that thanked him for his sacrifice while repo men circled like vultures. He lunged forward, not at Reynolds, but past him, snatching the clipboard and hurling it into the street. Papers fluttered like surrender flags. Silence, then Reynolds straightened his tie unfazed. "I'll mail another copy." As his polished shoes clicked down the walkway, James's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. But the voice on the other end, rough, familiar, sent a jolt through him. "Carter, it's Diaz. Heard what happened. Sit tight, brother. We're not done yet." The line went dead. Outside, the first raindrops hit the pavement. Somewhere beyond Maplewood, engines roared to life. Rain had turned Maplewood streets into ribbons of black glass by the time James Carter limped toward First National Bank the next morning. Every step sent fire up his spine. 12 miles without painkillers, 12 miles to beg for mercy from the people who'd already broken him. He rehearsed the words in his head. Just one more week. Just until the VA check clears. But the bank's marble facade loomed like a fortress, its polished doors reflecting his hunched silhouette back at him. A failure, a man who couldn't even keep a 10-year-old sedan. He never saw the convoy coming. First Humvee rounded the corner with a growl that shook the pavement, its olive green bulk blocking the bank's driveway. Then another, and another. Doors slammed in unison, boots hit asphalt like gunshots. James froze, his body instinctively squaring shoulders he no longer had, old habits from a life of snap salutes and clipped orders. But these weren't his orders, because there, striding through the phalanx of Marines in full dress blues, was Captain Diaz. Time bent, The bank's automatic doors hissed open, revealing Mr. Reynolds gaping behind his desk. Diaz didn't glance at him. He stopped a foot from James, eyes scanning the too-thin frame, the hands curled into fists against the pane. "Captain," James croaked. The title tasted like dust. Diaz's voice carried across the suddenly silent street. "You remember Sergeant Haddad, whose legs you dragged through sniper fire?" A pause. "He's a surgeon now, flew here last night." He jerked his chin toward the bank. "And this pencil pusher thinks he can take your wheels." The crowd materialized as if summoned, shopkeepers wiping hands on aprons, moms pushing strollers, teens filming on phones. Reynolds stumbled forward, pallid under his starched collar. "There's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding." Diaz peeled a sheet from his breast pocket. "Section 22 of the Service Members Civil Relief Act. You repossessed a disabled veteran's vehicle 12 hours before a medical appointment." He stepped closer. "I'd love to explain it to a judge or the news." A murmur rippled through the onlookers. Someone shouted, "Shame!" Reynolds' mouth opened, closed. Behind him, bank employees clustered like startled birds. Then movement. A Marine barked orders. Two others muscled a dolly through the crowd. On it, James's car, keys gleaming on the dash. "We impounded it from the auction lot," Diaz muttered. "Had to arm wrestle some bureaucrat in pajamas." James reached out, brushed the fender like it might vanish. The crowd erupted, cheers, applause, a woman sobbing into her hands. But all he heard was Linda's voice cutting through the noise. "James!" She shoved past Marines, her scrubs rumpled from a double shift, eyes wild with hope. Diaz clasped James's shoulder. "Your unit's got a new mission, brother, keeping you upright." Across the street, a news van screeched to a halt. Reynolds shrank back, but not fast enough. The cameras caught him flinching as a Marine thrust a clipboard into his chest. "Sign here," the soldier said, grinning, "or we park in your lobby." Keys felt alien in James's hand, cold metal biting into his palm as if he needed the pain to believe this was real. Around him, Maplewood had erupted into something between a parade and a protest. Neighbors he barely knew were clapping him on the back, thrusting coffee into Linda's hands, shouting over each other to share how they'd seen the Marines roll in. A teenager live-streamed beside them, narrating in breathless bursts. "Y'all seeing this?" They brought his car back. Inside the bank, the air smelled of sweat and printer toner. Mr. Reynolds' polished veneer had cracked, his collar damp, fingers smudging ink as he scrawled signatures across Diaz's paperwork. "The repossession is void," he stammered to the stone-faced Marine flanking him. Behind the counter, a teller surreptitiously snapped photos with her phone. James watched it all through the glass doors, Linda's grip tight around his arm. He should have felt triumph. Instead, exhaustion pooled in his bones. This wasn't how it was supposed to be, not after Fallujah, not after the medals and the speeches about sacrifice. A man shouldn't need an army to keep his damn car. Diaz emerged, holding aloft a single sheet of paper like a surrender document. The crowd roared. "Interest waived," he said, thrusting it at James, "and they're eating the early termination fee." His smirk faltered when James didn't react. "Hey, look at me." He waited until James met his eyes. "This isn't charity. You'd have done it for any of us." Honk split the noise. A silver pickup, no, a whole line of them, nosed through the crowd, each bearing the logo of Lawson Auto Group. The lead driver leapt out, a grizzled man in coveralls. "Heard you needed wheels," he called, tossing keys to a startled James. "That one's got 6 months free insurance. My nephew was in Mosul." Linda made a sound like a sob and a laugh tangled together. James opened his mouth, but no words came. The universe had tilted, strangers becoming saviors, humiliating want transformed into dizzying abundance. Across the street, the news reporter was narrating to her camera. An extraordinary display of solidarity for a veteran who nearly lost everything. And movement at the periphery, Reynolds slinking out a side door, briefcase shielding his face. The crowd noticed. A chorus of boos rose, phones pivoting to track his retreat. One Marine, baby-faced, probably younger than James's old rifle, stepped deliberately into his path. "Sir," he said too politely, "forgot your receipt." He pressed a crumpled repo notice into Reynolds' sweating palm. The bank manager flinched as if burned. Diaz watched, arms crossed. "Guy gonna get fired by noon," he muttered. "Turns out foreclosing on vets is bad PR." James finally laughed, the sound rough as sandpaper. The sun broke through the clouds, glinting off the rows of Marine dress blues, off the hood of his new old car, off Linda's tear-streaked face. For the first time in years, the weight in his chest didn't feel like shrapnel. Later, when the cameras left and the Humvees rumbled away, James found himself sitting on his porch steps, turning the auto dealer's keys over and over. Linda leaned against him, her hospital scrubs smelling of bleach and exhaustion. "They'll call tomorrow," she said softly. "The VA, about your back." He knew what she wasn't saying, that this wasn't over, that pain and bills and bad luck didn't vanish in one bright moment. But for now, for today, the world had bent toward justice. Somewhere beyond Maplewood, a phone rang in a newsroom. A bank boardroom erupted into shouts. And James Carter, for the first time since coming home, took a full breath. Camera lingers on James Carter's calloused hands. one gripping Linda's fingers, the other resting on the hood of his returned car. The morning sun paints everything gold, even the scars. Funny thing about battles, his voice murmurs over the shot, roughened by years of smoke and swallowed pride. The ones that break you never happen where anyone can see. The frame widens to reveal the Marine unit standing at attention behind him, Diaz's hand on his shoulder like an anchor. Montage flickers. The bank's apology statement trending online, local businesses pledging veteran discounts, Reynolds' resignation letter splashed across the news. But then, the real moment. James at his VA appointment, wincing as a doctor points to the shrapnel shadow on his x-ray. Linda asleep in the waiting room chair, still in her scrubs. The new used truck parked outside, its tires already muddy from the backroads James takes to avoid tolls. They tell you war ends when you come home, James continues as the screen splits, one side showing his younger self in uniform, grinning under a desert sun, the other the man he is now, tracing the names on his unit's memorial plaque. But some of us fight forever, just in quieter ways.